$8,000. That's what I paid for the mountain chalet that was supposed to be our family Christmas. My sister posted about it on Instagram like she'd booked it. My parents bragged to their friends about the trip. And then, on a random Wednesday night, my father looked me in the eye and said, "You're not invited. It's family only." I'm his son. I paid for everything. And in that moment, sitting in their living room holding a box of decorations I'd bought, I realized something that would change everything. They thought I was powerless. They had no idea I could cancel the entire reservation with a single click. And when my father tried committing bank fraud to steal my money and rebook it behind my back, I didn't just get angry, I got evidence. Projector. And a room full of extended family at my grandparents' anniversary who were about to see the truth in 4K. My name is Patrick. I'm 28, and for my entire life, I've been the family ghost. Present but invisible, contributing but uncredited, trying but never quite enough. Dad with his pressed suits and know-it-all attitude. Mom with her peacekeeping that always sided with him. And Vanessa, my younger sister, the golden child who could burn down the house and still be called spirited instead of reckless. Christmas was always their stage. Every year, same pattern. Vanessa got the spotlight. Dad delivered speeches about family values. Mom fussed over making everything look perfect while ignoring the passive-aggressive jabs thrown my way. I learned to handle it, the comparisons, the subtle reminders that I wasn't quite one of them like Vanessa was. But this year, something changed. I had a solid job, steady paycheck, and for once, I wanted to contribute. Make it feel like I wasn't just a bystander in their world. That's how the chalet happened. I found this beautiful cabin-style chalet in the mountains. Snow everywhere, wood-burning fireplace, massive windows overlooking the slopes, the kind of place people put on postcards. I spent weeks searching for the perfect spot, crunching numbers, finally booking the entire place. $8,000 disappeared fast, but it felt worth it. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe they'd see how much I cared. I texted Dad the confirmation. He didn't thank me, just said, "Good. That's the least you could do." I brushed it off. That was just Dad, never grateful, never wrong. But as December approached, the cracks appeared. Vanessa kept calling it her chalet trip, like I'd planned it for her. She even posted about it on social media. "Can't wait for our family Christmas at the chalet Dad rented." That stung. I wasn't even mentioned. When I asked why she phrased it that way, she just smiled. "Relax, Patrick. No one cares who booked it. It's Dad's idea anyway." That should have been my first warning. I still wanted to believe. Hoped that once we arrived, they might surprise me with some gratitude. Instead, everything detonated on a random Wednesday night in early December. I'd stopped by my parents' place after work to drop off boxes of decorations I'd bought. They were sitting in the living room sipping wine. Vanessa sprawled on the couch discussing what outfits she'd bring. I was about to mention how I'd stocked up on supplies for the chalet when Dad interrupted. "You're not invited to Christmas this year," he said, like he was telling me to take out the trash. I froze, the words barely registering. "What? You heard me," he replied flatly, swirling his wine glass. "It's going to be family-only Christmas. We don't need complications. You can do your own thing." I remember laughing, more from shock than amusement. "Family only? I'm literally your son." Vanessa smirked from the couch. "Dad just means it'll be less stressful without you. Don't make a scene, Patrick." And Mom, sweet, always neutral Mom, just gave me this pitying look like I was a stranger asking for shelter. "Maybe it's for the best, dear. We want peace this year." I can't describe how I felt in that moment. Hurt, yes. Betrayed, obviously. But mostly it was this cold clarity, like a curtain had been pulled back and I could finally see them for who they really were. For years, I'd been chasing scraps of validation, trying to fit in. And in one sentence, Dad made it clear, I never did. I didn't argue, didn't beg. I just nodded, set the box of decorations on the floor, and said, fine. They probably thought I was upset, that I'd go home and sulk about being excluded. But in reality, my mind was already moving. I remembered the chalet reservation sitting in my inbox, the one booked under my name with my card, my money. And as I walked out of their house that night, their smug faces behind me, I realized something. They thought they had Christmas wrapped up, that they could erase me like I was nothing. They had no idea what was coming. That night, I sat down at my laptop, opened my bank transfers, and quietly moved the holiday funds I'd sent Dad back into my account. $8,000 returned to its rightful place. Then I opened the chalet reservation and, with a simple click, canceled it entirely. No penalty, it was still early enough. The best part? The booking was technically in Dad's name because I wanted him to feel involved, but the payments were all mine. So when the cancellation went through, the refund came straight back to me. I didn't tell them, of course. I went to bed with a strange calm, half expecting fallout. The next morning, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. 31 missed calls, 12 voicemails, and one text that stopped me cold. Dad, call me back now. I didn't. I sat there with my coffee, scrolling through his voicemails, each one angrier than the last. First, confusion. Patrick, there's a mistake. The chalet reservation isn't showing up. Call them and fix it. Then annoyance. This isn't funny. If you're pulling some stunt, you better undo it immediately. Finally, rage. You think this makes you clever? You've embarrassed me, Patrick. Do you understand that? Fix this now. He was embarrassed. That's what mattered most to him. Not that his son had been uninvited. Not the sheer audacity of dumping me after I'd paid for everything. No, the real crime was that his friends and extended family would soon learn the big chalet trip wasn't happening. His pride had been wounded, and in his world, that was unforgivable. Vanessa started texting around noon. Her tone was sharper than Dad's. Less angry, more entitled. Are you seriously doing this to us? You promised we'd have Christmas at the chalet. All my friends know about it, Patrick. I already told everyone. Do you even care what this does to me? I could almost hear the whining through the screen. I didn't respond. Silence was more powerful than any words I could type. That evening, though, the real games began. Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced, carrying a casserole like she always did when she wanted to soften bad news. She let herself in using the spare key I didn't know she still had. Patrick, she said in that practiced, sweet tone. I think we got off on the wrong foot last night. You know your father, he's harsh sometimes. He didn't mean you weren't welcome. It was just tension talking.
He stared at her, genuinely curious.
So now I'm invited? Her smile faltered, but she pushed on. Of course, but only if you fix the chalet situation. Your father's reputation is at stake. A lot of people are looking forward to this trip. It would mean so much to everyone if you just handled it quietly. The manipulation was so obvious I almost laughed. It wasn't about me being included. It was about me cleaning up their mess. And if I don't? I asked. She set the casserole on my counter, folded her hands together like she was praying, and sighed. Then I'm afraid you'll be making things very difficult for this family. Do you really want to ruin Christmas for your sister? There it was. Vanessa's happiness above all else. I remembered birthdays where she got extravagant gifts while I got socks. I remembered when she crashed my car and my parents told me not to be selfish because Vanessa had been through enough stress. Same pattern repeating. My sacrifice. Her spotlight. I didn't give Mom the reaction she expected. I just said, "Thanks for the casserole," and walked her to the door. She looked at me with this sad little expression, like I was the problem child throwing a tantrum, and said, "Your father is very disappointed in you." That night, Vanessa added me to a new group chat she'd created. The name, Christmas at the Chalet Christmas Tree Snowflake. The irony almost killed me. She must not have realized I'd canceled everything, because her messages were full of gushing about ski outfits, champagne, and Instagram photos she'd take by the fireplace. "Dad, I'll handle the wine. Don't worry." "Mom." Clinking glasses Santa Claus. It was like they were trying to pretend I didn't exist, despite the fact that I was the one who made it possible. Finally, Vanessa tagged me. "Patrick, can you send the updated booking confirmation? Dad wants to make sure dinner reservations are lined up." I stared at the message for a long time, finger hovering over the keyboard. Every instinct told me to expose the truth right then, to reveal what I'd done, to watch them scramble. But something inside me said, "Not yet. Let them spin their fantasies a little longer. Let them believe everything was under control. The longer they dangled on the hook, the more satisfying it would be when reality snapped tight." The tension only escalated. Over the next week, they started dropping hints to extended family, bragging about the chalet trip, implying Vanessa was somehow hosting it. One of my aunts even texted me, confused, "Your sister said you're not coming this year. That can't be right, can it?" When I gently told her that Dad had uninvited me, she gasped. "But you're the one who paid." Word spread. I could sense their perfect little facade cracking around the edges. And with each crack, their texts became more frantic, more desperate. But nothing prepared me for the night Dad personally showed up at my apartment door. Not with rage this time, but with something far worse. False charm. He stood there in his pressed coat, holding a bottle of wine like we were old friends. "Patrick."
Son.
His voice was smooth. "We need to talk about this chalet situation. I know you're upset, but let's be adults. We can work something out." That's when I knew they weren't just panicked. They were scheming. Dad didn't come inside right away. He stood at the doorway like a salesman refusing to leave until you sign. "Can I come in?" he finally asked. Curiosity won. I opened the door wider. He placed the wine on my counter without asking, like he owned the place. We sat across from each other, silence stretching. Then he leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Listen, about what I said the other night. Uninvited. That was harsh. I was frustrated. You know how things get." I didn't respond, just let him keep talking. He shifted in his seat. "Your sister's been under a lot of stress lately. Her job's shaky, she's worried about money, and this chalet trip, well, it's important for her. She wants to impress her friends, keep her reputation intact. You understand, don't you?" There it was, the speech I'd been expecting. Vanessa's feelings once again the top priority. My role: fix her life, make sure she always looked good while I stayed invisible. Dad cleared his throat, leaned back. "So here's what we'll do. You'll rebook the chalet. Use your card again, I know you can afford it, and put it under my name so I can manage things properly. In exchange, we'll talk about involving you more in family decisions going forward. You've said you want to be part of things, right? More involved. Like I hadn't been trying to be part of things all along. Like belonging to my own family was some reward he could dangle in front of me if only I paid the price." I kept my voice steady. "So let me get this straight. You want me to rebook an $8,000 trip after you told me I wasn't invited? Just so Vanessa doesn't get embarrassed." His smile faltered for a fraction of a second before snapping back. "It's not about embarrassment. It's about family unity. You wouldn't want to be responsible for ruining Christmas, would you?" I almost laughed. Family unity. The phrase sounded absurd coming from him. But I stayed quiet, letting the silence grow heavier. Dad hated silence. He always rushed to fill it. And sure enough, he started talking again. This time, his tone harder. If you refuse, Patrick, you're sending a clear message to your mother, sister, everyone, that you don't care about them. And if that's the path you want to take. He paused, eyes narrowing. Then don't expect us to be there for you when you need us. There was the threat, not the words themselves. I'd known deep down for years they'd never truly be there for me. It was the coldness behind them, the transactional way he presented it. For him, family wasn't about love or loyalty. It was leverage. I swallowed hard, kept my expression neutral. So you're threatening to cut me off unless I pay for everything again? Dad leaned back, crossed his arms. Not a threat, just reality. You're old enough to understand how the world works. Nothing's free. Those words shattered something in me. I remembered all the times I'd gone out of my way to help them. The loans I gave when Dad's investments tanked, the weekends I spent fixing things around their house, the endless patience while Vanessa got praised for doing the bare minimum. And here he was, staring me in the eyes, insisting none of it mattered unless I opened my wallet again. I'm not sure if he saw the shift in my expression, but for the first time that night, I think he realized I wasn't going to cave. His fake charm slipped slightly. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Patrick. But the betrayal wasn't over. 2 days later, I got a call from my bank. This is about a flagged transaction. Someone tried to use your account information to make a large purchase, a reservation deposit for a chalet. The name on the attempted booking was your father's. That was when the final thread of trust snapped. When the bank told me about the attempted fraud, my first emotion wasn't even anger. It was the strange, hollow feeling, like the floor had dropped out. I'd expected Dad to try manipulation, but I didn't expect him to go so far as attempting to steal from me. My own father had tried to commit fraud using my personal information. There was no longer even a thin thread of familial loyalty tying us together. For him, this was survival. If he couldn't control me with words, he'd use money. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying everything. Vanessa's posts, Mom's guilt trips, Dad's smug face, and now this. The betrayal was layered and heavy. And for the first time in my life, I discovered something that both terrified and liberated me. I didn't have a family. Not really. The next few days were brutal. Vanessa went into overdrive on social media, painting me as the monster. She made vague posts about selfish people who ruin everything. Of course, all her friends expressed sympathy. A cousin even texted me, "Did you really cancel Christmas?" With that, the narrative shifted. I wasn't just left out anymore. I was painted as the bad guy, the reason the family was falling apart. Mom texted message after message begging me to just fix this. Your father is under so much stress. Vanessa's heartbroken. You know how important this is to her. She never asked how I was doing. Never once acknowledged what they'd done to me. At work, I struggled to focus. I'd sit at my desk, spreadsheets open, but my mind would drift back to Dad's words. Nothing's free. The loneliness hit hard. Christmas lights went up all over the city. Couples walked hand in hand through decorated streets. Everywhere I looked, people were surrounded by warmth, laughter, connection. And me? I had a one-bedroom apartment and a stack of unanswered texts reminding me how unwelcome I was. I'll admit, there was one night I almost broke. I sat with my phone in hand, thumb hovering over the Call Dad button, thinking that if I just apologized, gave in, I could have my family back. But then I remembered the bank call, the attempted fraud, and the hollow in my chest felt different. Resolve. That was the turning point. I started small. I gathered all the documentation I had, emails showing the chalet was booked in my name, the cancellation refund, the bank's fraud alert. I backed up Vanessa's posts, her demanding texts, Dad's threatening voicemails. For the first time, I stopped reacting emotionally and started viewing the situation as a chess game. Every move they made, I countered. I didn't tell them what I was doing. On the surface, I stayed quiet, stopped answering calls, ignored guilt-laden texts, let them think I was sulking in shame. Meanwhile, I was building something stronger, something they wouldn't expect. But before I could execute my plan, they managed to push me even lower. One evening, about a week before Christmas, I came home to find an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a letter, typed cold, formal, from Dad, though unsigned. In it, Dad stated that I would no longer be welcome at family events unless I learned to respect the sacrifices they'd made for me. He said Vanessa deserved the chalet because she demonstrated loyalty, while I had only caused friction and embarrassment. And the final line, I'll never forget it. Patrick, you are not needed in this family. Consider this a warning. I sat on the floor of my apartment, letter in hand, staring at the words until they blurred. That was the bottom, the kind of pain that settles deep in your chest and refuses to move. But even in that darkness, something inside me shifted again. The kid who'd always sought their approval, who'd bent himself to fit their mold, that kid was gone. What remained was quieter, sharper, more deliberate. I wasn't going to fight for their affection anymore. I was going to make sure they understood what it felt like to lose what they thought they controlled. And so, in the silence of that empty apartment, I began to plan. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. Something inside me crystallized after reading that letter. It felt like I'd spent my whole life reaching for a thread of approval that would never come. I finally realized I didn't need it anymore. If I wasn't needed, I owed them nothing. The first step was cutting off the lifelines that had been quietly draining me for years. Vanessa overdrawing her account. I'd been secretly transferring her money. Dad's investments tanking. I cover bills. I chip in for groceries, gas, utilities, small expenses that added up. It was habit born from guilt and a desire to prove I belonged. Not anymore. I shut everything down, changed my online banking passwords, deactivated Mom's emergency credit card access, even rerouted my mail to prevent snooping. It was like turning off a series of leaking faucets that had been running for years. Then I turned inward at work. Instead of dragging my feet, I started arriving early, putting in effort, volunteering for projects I used to avoid. Part of me needed to immerse myself in something productive. Another part realized every hour I spent on myself was one step closer to freedom from their shadow. My supervisor noticed. Within weeks, I was in a meeting hearing the words promotion and salary increase. For the first time, I felt momentum. My bank account grew. I didn't spend evenings scrolling through their manipulative texts. I deleted them all. Instead, I started hitting the gym after work, something I'd put off for years. The weights, the sweat, the slow but steady progress. It all became ritual. My body got stronger. My confidence improved. I wasn't the same person who'd sat on that floor clutching Dad's letter anymore. The transformation spread to other areas of my life. I reconnected with old friends I'd distanced myself from because my family didn't like them. Julian, a college buddy who had his own small marketing agency, asked me to help with some freelance work. What started as a side project quickly became a significant income stream. Julian even joked, "Man, you've been hiding your skills too long. If your family doesn't appreciate you, trust me, other people will." Those words stuck. For so long, I'd measured my worth by their standards. But outside their bubble, I was valued, respected, even admired. And that's where the real power shift began. Remember all that documentation I'd been quietly gathering? The chalet receipts, Vanessa's posts, the bank fraud notice, Dad's voicemails. I started piecing them together like puzzle pieces, not out of spite at first, but to reassure myself I wasn't crazy. The evidence was undeniable. They had tried to erase, manipulate, and steal from me, and I had proof. The longer I looked at it, the clearer it became. If I wanted justice, it wouldn't be through rants or emotional outbursts. It would be through precision, patience, letting them dig their own hole. Meanwhile, life outside their orbit only got brighter. Julian connected me to contacts who opened doors I'd never imagined. New contracts, bigger clients, more money than I'd ever made. I moved into a larger apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Every night I'd stand there, glass of wine in hand, staring at the twinkling lights below, thinking, this is mine, not theirs.
Mine.
It wasn't about money or status. It was about finally building something they couldn't touch, claim credit for, or take away. They were still sending messages, of course. Vanessa tried guilt trips. Dad issued veiled threats. Mom played martyr. I lie awake at night worried about you. But where those words used to wound, they now barely scratched me. I didn't even respond. Silence became my most effective weapon. Because deep down, I knew something they didn't. They'd already lost their grip on me. They just didn't know how much more they were about to lose. Then one afternoon, I discovered something that changed everything. The opportunity came on an ordinary Tuesday. I was in Julian's office helping him prep a presentation when I glanced through my inbox and saw a message from my aunt. The same one who'd texted me confused about the chalet weeks earlier. Subject line, "Thought you should see this." Attached was a scanned email chain between my father and other extended family members. My heart raced as I read. Dad had told them that Vanessa would be covering Christmas expenses this year. She stepped up as the responsible one. Patrick has decided he can't contribute. He's embarrassed, so we shouldn't bring it up in front of him. My stomach twisted. Responsible one. Vanessa hadn't contributed a single penny. Dad was rewriting the story to make me look like a failure. Worse, he was planting the idea that I couldn't afford things, that I was somehow beneath them. But as nauseating as it made me feel, the email was invaluable. It confirmed what I'd suspected all along. Their game wasn't just about cutting me out. It was about erasing me and rewriting the family narrative so I'd be remembered as weak, selfish, disposable. And then something occurred to me. If they wanted to play with narratives, I'd make sure the truth was loud, clear, and impossible to twist. The timing was perfect, too. My promotion had just finalized, tripling my salary. Julian's freelance contracts were booming. My savings account looked better than ever. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving, financially secure, professionally respected, socially connected, all things they couldn't touch. That night, I began mapping out what I called the reveal. Step 1. Document everything. I created a folder on my laptop with labeled files, screenshots of Vanessa's social media posts bragging about her chalet, bank statements showing the money came from me, the cancellation receipt, the fraud alert, and now Dad's email chain. Every lie they'd told left a paper trail. And I had it all. Step 2. Allies. My aunt was already halfway there when she sent me the email. I reached out to her cautiously over coffee. She admitted she'd always felt my parents favored Vanessa unfairly, but had no idea how far it went. "Your father's pride is his weakness," she told me. "Vanessa believes anything that makes her look good." Her words stuck like pins on a map. Weaknesses, patterns, places to strike. Step 3. Position myself where they didn't expect. Instead of isolating, I started attending extended family gatherings again. Birthdays, casual dinners, anything except my parents' place. At first there were whispers, awkwardness from people who weren't sure which version of the story to trust. But I stayed calm, polite, present. I didn't defend myself, didn't bring up the chalet. I just let them see me. Stable job, new apartment, healthier, happy. Slowly, doubt began creeping in. People noticed Vanessa's bragging didn't match the reality they saw in me. And all the while I was building. Julian referred me to someone in event planning, and it was through this connection that I got the idea for the final piece of my plan. If my parents wanted to use family gatherings as a stage, I'd make sure the brightest spotlight was shining directly on them when the time came. Because power isn't always about having the loudest voice or the tightest grip. Sometimes it's patience, quietly stepping out of the shadows, stacking the evidence, aligning the pieces, and waiting until your opponents are so confident they've won that they don't notice the ground crumbling beneath them. By the time Christmas arrived, my parents thought they'd succeeded. They spent the holidays sulking at home, no chalet, no trip. But they told everyone it was my fault, that I'd ruined everything. Vanessa posted photos with friends at a ski resort she'd rented for clout, pretending it was the chalet. To the outside world, they seemed unfazed. But I knew the truth, and I knew what was coming next. The setting for my reckoning appeared almost too perfectly. My aunt called in late January to tell me there would be a big family gathering celebrating my grandparents' anniversary. Not just cousins and uncles this time, everyone. Aunts, uncles, family friends, some of Dad's business partners. People who'd known me since I was a kid. In other words, the exact audience my parents loved performing for. The moment I hung up, I knew. It was time. I spent the next week refining the evidence folder I'd been building. Every receipt, screenshot, voicemail, carefully organized into a presentation file I could open on my laptop and project if needed. But the beauty of my plan was that I didn't have to yell or accuse. I just had to present the truth. Quietly, methodically, let their own words do the damage. The night of the anniversary, I walked into the banquet hall wearing the suit I'd bought with my promotion bonus. Crisp, tailored, understated power. I wasn't the helpless black sheep they'd painted me as. I shook hands, smiled, accepted compliments about how good I looked. My parents spotted me immediately. Dad stiffened. Mom's polite smile wavered. Vanessa rolled her eyes like I'd crashed her event. I could feel their discomfort simmering, and it only fueled me more. Dinner was served, wine poured, speeches given. Then came the casual conversations around tables. I waited, because I knew Vanessa couldn't resist. She was laughing loudly, telling a cousin, "It was such a disaster." Patrick bailed last minute. Honestly, Dad and I had to scramble to make Christmas decent. But, some people just can't handle responsibility. Her words were bait, and I took them. I set down my drink calmly and said, "That's interesting, Vanessa, because from where I sit, it looked a little different." The table fell silent. Dad quickly interjected, voice smooth but strained. "Let's not air family drama here. Tonight's about your grandparents." I laughed softly. "I agree. It's about family, which is why it might be nice for everyone to know the full story. Since you've already started it, Vanessa." I pulled out my laptop. I hadn't planned to make it theatrical, but sometimes the moment demands it. I asked my cousin to help me switch inputs on a projector that had been set up for a slideshow of old photos. Within seconds, my screen was up on the wall, and I showed them everything. First, the chalet confirmation email with my name and payment clearly visible. Gasps rippled through the room. Next, the cancellation notice with the refund going back to me. Then, Vanessa's posts bragging about her chalet, followed by Dad's email chain claiming Vanessa had paid for everything. Finally, the bank's flagged fraud alert with his name on it. I didn't raise my voice once, didn't accuse, didn't dramatize. I simply stated, "This is what happened. I paid for the chalet. They told me I wasn't invited. And when I canceled it, they tried to use my account information without my permission. The silence that followed was crushing. You could hear silverware clinking against plates. My parents' faces were pale, frozen. Vanessa sputtered something about me twisting things, but the evidence was right there, undeniable. Then came the murmurs. My aunt shook her head. My uncle muttered, "I knew something was off." Even one of Dad's business associates leaned back and whispered, "Unbelievable." For once, I wasn't the outsider. I wasn't the one being dismissed. Everyone in that room knew I was telling the truth. Dad tried to salvage it. He stood, glass in hand, saying, "Let's not overreact. It was a misunderstanding." But I cut him off, staying calm. A misunderstanding is forgetting to invite someone. This was deliberate. And I think everyone here deserves to know what family values mean to you. The word values hung in the air like a blade. Mom finally broke down, whispering, "Patrick, please stop." But it was too late. The damage was done. Their carefully constructed facade had shattered in front of the very people they wanted to impress. I didn't stay long after that. I didn't need to. As I left the banquet hall, I could still hear the murmurs, the questions directed at them. For the first time in my life, the weight wasn't on me. It was on them. And the satisfaction of walking out into the cold night air with my head held high was unlike anything I'd ever felt. The fallout was immediate. My phone was buzzing constantly the morning after. Not from my parents, they stayed silent, but from cousins, uncles, even family friends who'd been there. The messages all had the same tone. Disbelief, sympathy, quiet confirmation. "I can't believe they treated you like that. You were right to show everyone. You're invited to spend the holidays with us instead." Word spread fast. My parents' reputation, which they'd guarded so carefully, was in ruins. Dad's colleagues who'd attended the dinner stopped returning his calls. A business contact who'd overheard the whole chalet fiasco pulled out of a partnership over ethical concerns. For a man who lived by appearances, it was like watching his empire crumble. Vanessa tried damage control on social media, posting cryptic claims about toxic siblings and jealousy, but no one bought it. Screenshots of her original bragging posts had already circulated through the family. Every attempt she made to paint herself as the victim just dug her deeper. Friends she'd worked so hard to impress unfollowed her. Her small circle of admirers shrank overnight. And Mom? Mom retreated completely. For years, she'd been the peacemaker, smoothing over Dad's rants and Vanessa's entitlement. But after that night, no one was listening to her "let's just move on" comments anymore. People saw her silence as complicity. I stayed quiet. I didn't gloat, didn't say a word. Silence, which I'd once hated, had become my most powerful weapon. Weeks passed. The distance grew. No more calls. No guilt trips. No letters taped to my door. It was like they realized they had no leverage left. And the best part? I didn't miss them. For the first time in my life, I felt light. I had a job, friends, growing independence. I had peace. Then one afternoon in March, I saw my aunt again at a cafe. She told me Dad tried throwing a dinner to clear the air, but barely anyone showed up. The family wasn't interested in playing along with his version of reality anymore. "You don't realize it yet," she said, smiling, "but you won. Not just against them, but against the hold they had on you." That night, I went home, stood by my apartment window, and looked out at the city lights. For years, I'd begged to sit at their table, bent myself to fit their shape, carried the weight of their approval like a burden I couldn't drop. But I didn't need it anymore. I'd built something stronger, something they couldn't twist or take away. Their chalet trip had failed. Their reputation had crumbled. Their grip on me was gone. As I turned away from the glass, a smile tugged at my lips, because in truth they hadn't uninvited me from Christmas. I had uninvited them from my life, and it was the best gift I'd ever given myself.